Honestly, it's an honor to be here. Tanji, thank you for being here, man. That's so cool. Love a lot of the stuff that you said. Notes. That's what I was writing. To be honest with you, when Chris was saying, "Hey, would you come and just speak to some youth pastors in Arizona?" And I'm like, "Oh, what do you want me to say?" I just figured that I would talk about what I'm dealing with, and then hopefully that it could be encouraging to us, because I'm pretty sure all of us here, like we had to make like a pretty hard pivot to online, right? Like that's kind of, we weren't really expecting it, and we had to turn really really hard. And so obviously too, with different churches and different settings, some people's online content, quote unquote, looks better, like more production or all that kind of stuff. And I think the thing that comes to my mind, I kind of wrote it down of like, I don't know what youth pastor needs to hear this, but stop it is like the word that came to my head of when it comes to comparison. Because you look at other churches and kind of see what they got going on, and you go like, oh man, I wish that I had that much, that it looked that good, or I wish that I could do this better, or if I had this much money or this budget or that big of a church, then I could do all the things that they're putting out. I know that last week you guys had John Rush, and I love that dude, because I look at, we're a big church, but I look at them, there's always someone doing it better. Yeah, and doing it more like productive. And I see what they got coming out, I'm like, frick, I want that. I want to do that. I wish our stuff looked like that. And so I just kind of thought through of, was super convicted and talked about it with my team, because I don't have my role right now is I'm like the youth pastor of youth pastors, so I'm not in the trenches, and like I'm not like dealing like face to face with students. I'm dealing with the youth pastors at every one of our campuses who are dealing with students on the personal level. And um, I shared this with them in our last meeting, because I'm right now taking care of all of like the production stuff, and making sure that our online service is good. And Thundy, like I like what you guys said, like about the idea of, we were one of those churches that we saw this coming, and so we recorded like 35 videos before we couldn't, before stay at home. And so like of like fun bits and um, testimonies from our youth pastors at different campuses. But then also at the same time, we're still putting on like a 35-minute service, but then that we've been giving stuff to our youth pastors of all our campuses to like film at home. Like if you've seen Jimmy Fallon, a lot of the at home stuff that he's been doing. And so it's like a combo of these two things. And so I was sharing this with our youth pastors at our campuses of this, and hopefully it could be encouraging to us as we're kind of navigating through it, as we're looking, because it's really easy like to compare yourself and what you're putting out online right now to other churches down the street or online, because now like everyone's sharing everything. Everyone has a YouTube channel, everyone has all the, it's like kind of all up in your face. And so my encouragement to me, I mean, I'm speaking to myself, is don't worry about being flashy, be frequent. I think that's like something that I've been trying to like navigate through, in the sense of, I don't think that this is a season for spectacle. Like usually we try to put on an event that's like the eye-catching thing or whatever it is. I think right now, like as we're dealing with students who are being home, and seniors who are losing graduations and proms and all that kind of stuff, it's not a time for the spectacle. I think that it's a season for us to connect frequently with our students and leaders. And so, yeah, last night we had our online service, but what I want our leads to do at our campuses is that I want them to put on like a mini youth group before the actual youth group online. And so like they're doing like the Zoom calls, and they're doing like games through Zoom. I had a couple of our campuses to say, hey, play a game, and then during the online service, go to their house and drop off the prize because they won the game. Just like a little bit more, very like kind of thinking creatively outside of the box of how we could still do social distancing, but also be very, how can we still be personal without being personally close, like physically. And so it's just, I think the idea of just being frequent of, we put on our leaders, I think John Rush said this, and I took it from his team. Like the idea of like the digital is the new personal. And so like how we need to be frequent, like, and connecting with our students, like our small group leaders. If you're not in a small group chat on Instagram, you like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing with your personal touches of being frequent to make sure that they're seeing your face, connecting with them. All of our campuses, what I've instructed our leads to do is they need to call. It doesn't matter who's on the roster, is call. And just start making calls all the way down the line, whether they've been coming for their normal kid, or they haven't showed up in 3 years. If they're on your roster, you're calling them, and just being frequent. Almost like I tell them, almost be annoying. That's like kind of what we want, the borderline of annoying, in the sense of how frequently we want to connect with them. Because I think for many of our students that they're probably struggling or just needing someone to be consistent in their lives right now. And I think that's the unique opportunity. Like the one thing about youth group on a Wednesday night for us is that for a lot of our students, we could be the only consistent thing in their week, because we don't know what their home life's like. We don't know what's happening with all the stress. And so if we could still continue to be the frequent person that they know that is for them, could see them, could hear them, could be there for them, then that's what we want. So I don't think we need to worry about being flashy, what that other church is doing or whatever you got going on. It's just, I think our students want us to be more frequent. And so that another thing for me was, I don't think we need to stress about being high production. It's just, I'd rather be highly present. And I think that's just kind of the same idea. Is like the same thing with frequency, is that we just want to be highly present in our lives. And so, whether that's like we rely on our small group leaders. We tell our small group leaders all the time, hey, I might have I might be like the title of youth pastor, but you are their youth pastor. And because when something's going down, they're not calling me, they're calling you as their small group leader. And so if we could just be present, and not only on top of that, like this is a great time too to minister to the family, like not only just a student, but like it's a chance for you to really, like, as the small group leader and the youth pastor at that campus, is that you have the opportunity now to be like in the home with your entire family, like on FaceTime, because most of the time they're FaceTiming or connecting, being present on the couch while the rest of the family is sitting around. And so like we have an opportunity now, like we're literally like in their home, you know what I mean? Like we're like, our faces up on the screen, and it could cause some great conversation to do that. And because they're watching our youth service online on the couch as families, like we've seen pictures of that. And like, so what a unique, what other time do we get to do this? And like for us right now, that we get to be highly, high production, yeah, cool. But I think like if you look at even all like the big like YouTube people, like a lot of the stuff is like very quick edit style blogs, and a lot of our iPhones, like you said, like the iPhone is an amazing tool. We had shot most of our service last week on an iPhone, and it still looked good, and connection was still happening, and great conversations were still going. I would say too, like just as a little off note to that, what we've been doing and what we've been seeing a lot of success is collect stories right now. I think that's the one thing, is that we're so on to the next thing, of like the next week, because it's the ongoing program is a never ending full, like it's never full beast that you always have to feed. And so like we need to stop and collect stories, because then you could share like what's still happening at home. And it looks good with your higher ups, because when they ask you for good things that are happening, then you have a story to share right off the bat. Like, oh man, there's a small group that met, and the girl that never prayed, she's always shy, she led out in prayer for the first, like there's always something that we could have. So I would be collecting stories and asking your leaders to be doing that as well. And that you only get that though by being highly present right now. So not high production, but highly present. So that way we could continue to navigate through. And like for us, our goal this, I love what you said about like a new starting point, or a new reference point. So we're not looking at what our attendance was, is I'm seeing, okay, what is our first week of small group attendance? And then let's continue to grow that from there. And so what we want to do is, like, if I could get 75% of our group, like our normal attendance before all of this happened, in small groups, when we do come back, we're not going to lose momentum. Like I feel like we could kind of come back going. And so our goal now, I think we're at like 56% of our normal small group attendance. So that's where we start. And then now our goal is to kind of hit back up to that 70-75%, because I think when we are done, then we're gonna continue. We didn't lose out. We lost out on meeting in person, but we didn't lose out on community that was built. And so we're able to, like, that's like kind of like our goal is like small group stuff, is if the relationships are still rolling and we're able to keep that growing and set up our leaders really well for that, to be highly present, because that's my job, is to set them up well to do that. Then I think that when we come back rolling, it was that we're going to kind of hit the ground running still. And I don't feel like we'll lose any like relational equity that comes along with that. And the last thing for me that I was telling my team, is that, uh, again, I go, maybe just because it's fresh in my head, because I talked to John like 2 days ago, but he did this amazing, really funny bit on his Instagram where he was like, how youth pastors talk and they try to be all hype on, like, it doesn't translate as well, like in a big room with everybody, but everyone's like on Instagram like, yo, what's up everybody, and we're just kind of like the typical like jolly youth pastor online. And for a lot of us, we're trying to like build up that hype. And so I think that, let's try not to be hype, but let's have a heart, heart over hype in this season. Because I think that's kind of the that's what our students want right now. It's not the high production. It's not the thing that the church is doing. They want to know that they have a youth pastor at their campus, where like in their city, that actually knows them, sees them, cares for them, calls them, has a heart for them. And I think that, like, Gen Z, they value the most thing that they care about the most right now is authenticity. They could smell a fake from a mile away. And so, like, when we don't put on the hype, don't need to put on the show, don't need to put on the production. I think that if we are just have the camera in front of them, whether it's on IG Live, or whether that's on YouTube, whether that's on like your search, like on your church's like live platform, I think that if you're not being just real and have the heart piece with them, then they're not going to tune in and they're not going to zoom in, and so into their small groups. And so I think the biggest mistake that I've seen youth pastors make right now is they try to be all hype online. And I think that in the season is that's just the wrong way to go. I think we need to have that heart piece to go, because what they want is that they want to know that you're a real person, and that you are, that you actually genuinely care for them and their family, and like to stop and like pray for them. And so, like, just even what I'm doing right now, and I'll end with this, is like all of my one-on-ones with all my campus, like my youth pastors right now, we're not talking ministry. I'm just literally I ask them 3 questions. It's, how are you? That's number 1. And if we get to the other 2, that's great. Like, how are you doing? And I think these are questions that we could ask our small group leaders and ask our students. How are you doing in this season of ministry is what I ask them. And so, translate them with students or small group leaders, like, how are you doing in this season? And then what can I do to help you? I think those are the 3 things that I ask. And I think, what we've seen out of that has been really, really good. And that a lot of our youth pastors at our campuses have seen a lot of good stuff that come from that, because they want that heart piece more than anything else. And so I think I'll end on this, is that I think students want more connection now than ever. And I think even more so, I think that I would add, they want even more personal connection over online connection than ever. And so I think it's a unique opportunity for that, for sure.